First, I want to welcome everyone here this afternoon. So thank you for those of you who are here in person. I understand we have a couple hundred who are logged in online at this time. And so I want to thank you for joining us today to welcome Philonise Floyd. There we have, who is the brother of George Floyd, who is wrongfully killed. In a society that is still full of inequality, injustice, implicit and explicit bias. So we're really excited today because we've had to have both of these wonderful speakers because we've been having a lot of conversation as a nation, as a community, and internally here at Peckham about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What do we need to do internally? What do we need to do within our community? And what do we need to do as a nation to make sure that what happened to George Floyd doesn't happen again? One of the things I most like about living here in Lansing is we are a close community. We're a community, we're a family. We accept and embrace diversity. But we too in this community can do a better job. We too internally can do a better job at being open, at being inclusive, at respecting our differences, acknowledging our differences, and embracing that is what makes us stronger. We want to create more empathy for each other. We want to have a more equitable, a more just society that we all can live in and all can thrive in. And that's why today is an incredibly special day for us here at Peckham, because we help our speakers today help amplify and demonstrate that message. This series is provided through the Peckham Community Partnership Foundation. Okay, this is the spot where I'm supposed to get donations. Just to let you know. For nearly 15 years, we've been providing these type of speaker series, and we do that through donations from you, from our community, to the Peckham Community Partnership Foundation. There's a lot of different ways you can support the foundation. You can volunteer to mentor in our youth services division and our programs that need mentors. You can volunteer to assist us in many different ways. You can also give money. And if you would like to do it that way, go to www.peckham.org and hit the donate button. It's right there. It's pretty clear. So I'm going to invite Siobhan Lewis up to the stage, who is going to introduce our next speaker. And so please give a round of applause for Siobhan. She's worked hard to put this program together.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my great privilege and honor to introduce our speaker today, who already feels like a part of Peckham family. He just fits right in, he and his wife, Keita. So I'm happy to share a little bit about Philonise's story, and then we will jump right into questions. So on June 20th, 1981, Philonise O'Neill Floyd was the fourth child born to the late Mrs. Larcinia Miss Sissy Jones on Fort Hood Army Base. Raised in the 3rd Ward area of Houston, Texas, he attended Jack Yates High School and Texas Southern University, pursuing a degree in criminal justice. In 2014, Philonise started his professional driving career with one of the nation's largest refrigerator carriers, and later accepted a position with W.M. Dewey & Son, hauling custom pipes to their specific destinations. On May 26, 2020, Philonise learned that his older brother, George Perry Floyd Jr., had been murdered by 4 police officers in Minneapolis after a store clerk alleged that he passed a counterfeit $20 bill. The world watched as named officer Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Across the United States and internationally, George's death sparked protests and outrage against police brutality especially toward Black people. The day after laying George to rest, June 10th, 2020, Philonise testified before United States Congress urging them to do the right thing by passing the Justice in Police Act of 2020, barring chokeholds, creating a registry to track officers with serious misconduct records, and lift certain legal protections that now make it hard to go after officers in court for using excessive force. Philonise's life as a transporter drastically changed forever. He vowed that George's death would not be in vain. It wouldn't be another hashtag on a t-shirt. And he began to tirelessly advocate change against systemic racism and the challenges faced due to police injustice that has for over 400 years led to the harassment and killing of African Americans at the hands of police. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Philonise Floyd to the stage.
Just want to thank you all for having me here. As y'all can see, I'm nervous. I'm always nervous. No matter how much you get in front of cameras, you talking to individuals anywhere, you always want to be like mindful of what's going on. So my brother, which everybody in here has seen all throughout the world, he was murdered on May 25th, 2020. He was murdered by 4 police officers. Um, they didn't too much care about life, but the fact that now my niece is fatherless. Gianna, she doesn't have a father anymore. Um, she would never be able to walk down the aisle. She would never be able to have a daddy, like father daddy dance, anything daughter dance. It's just traumatizing every time I speak with her, and she's still a child, so she really don't know what's going on, what we see. Uh, the fact that a lot of you might not know that me I went to the funeral, me, my wife, family members. The next day, we didn't even get a chance to just be at home. The next day, I was actually in Congress speaking on my brother's behalf. And not just speaking for my brother, I was speaking for individuals all across the world. So they won't have to have the same problems that my brother had, other individuals who had before then. Um, I never thought that I would be thrusted into a spotlight like this. The fact that I was a truck driver, like she said before, something that I fell in love with doing. But just coming in here, y'all like a big family. And I used to work in a warehouse. It was nothing like this. I don't want to get off track, but it's nothing like this. Y'all have like one of the best facilities I have ever been in. And my wife, she was saying the same thing. This is amazing. Um, the fact that my brother not only had 4 officers on him, the weight of them, he had the weight of systemic racism that has plagued this world for centuries. And one of the biggest reasons that I'm here today is to speak about social justice, to speak about change, to speak about how we can all come together to be able to make a better world, a better place to live in, a better place for your kids to be able to live in, and societies all across this nation. I've been with United Nations. I'm talking at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because it's different time zones. Um, I've been at the mayor's office. I've been with kids. I've been into different prisons. I just been conducting myself in the right way because I don't care about the usage of my body because I can sleep when I'm dead. So a lot of times, this is what I get out and I speak about. My brother, he was like 6'7". He was like 200. He was a huge individual. My mom, she used to call him her freak of nature. And that's who she was asking for when she was on hospice. She was saying, I want to see my freaking nature. And, you know, he was crying because he was coming all the way from Minnesota to get here. But the fact that he was an individual who everybody loved. You see how, like, I came in and I was shaking hands and doing, that's what George would do. He would shake everybody's hand in here. I'm talking about one by one. And I used to ask him, I say, hey, man, why do you do that? All you got to do is just wave at everybody. He said, for you, you can do that. But for me, I can't because look at me. He said, people look at me and they're scared of me. He said, so I greet everybody one by one so they can know that I'm okay and they can be comfortable the entire time while they're here. So he showed me a lot about different things in life, and that's one of the biggest reasons that not just me, my family members, we fight so much for other individuals and people who just like George, because a lot of people don't know mental health is real, and the fact that a lot of people don't look into it, you know, you have a lot of problems, but nobody wants to talk about them. And the fact that George, you know, my mom, he loved my mom. You know, they were like you would think they were husband and wife. You know, because my brother would literally, because my mom was in a wheelchair, so she would he would pick her up and dance with her, and they would have Marvin Gaye playing, the Isley Brothers, different artists that she loved. Um, it was funny. They would lay on the couch like they was in the fetus position, like he was still in the womb, you know, because he loved us so much. He would kiss my mom every day before he went outside. He would kiss her, and the love, the passion that he showed for her, I I really like. He taught us a lot. He taught me, my younger brothers, my nieces, my nephews. Um, we pretty much we all raised each other, but George is the one that told us, "Hey, you're not gonna do this. You're not gonna do that." You know, and we all listened. So um, he is one of the people like in Houston that he's known. Not he's known a lot of different places. He actually played against Yao Ming before too, in China. And I remember the news coming and they were asking questions like, "How is Yao Ming?" They asked different questions, and the first thing that he said was, "Yao Ming is the truth." Because a lot of people say, "Oh man, a Chinese man can't play basketball. He can't do this. He can't do that." But my brother said he's the real deal. And everybody found out later that Yao Ming was the real deal. He just had a lot of foot issues, but he was the real deal. Um, I just know it's so much to talk about. George, he was big on being spiritual. He was a Christian. He would talk to anybody about God. Hell, he would talk to the tree about God if it listens. But but George was one of the ones that I knew that would come home and he would tell me things like, no, this is extra stuff. He was actually talking to a tree. And I asked him why. And he said, because any problems that you have, you can always say it to the tree because the tree can't talk back. But when you go in with your family, you don't want to go in like upset and stuff like that. But he was one of those people that like if he was in here right now, y'all would totally enjoy him. He was a jokester. People say I joke a lot, but I don't. But George, man, I really wish y'all had a chance to have the opportunity to meet him. He was one of a kind. If he was a card, he'll be the ace of spades. Um, he helped people. He cut people hairs in the neighborhood who didn't have money for haircuts. I don't even think he even knew how to cut hair. I think he just honest. No, I'm serious because one day somebody had. I don't know if y'all know what a chili bowl is, but they just, you know what I mean. They just put your mom put the thing on your head at the bowl and just cut around it, and she considered it a flat top. And you had to go to school. Everybody's laughing at you. So George seen it. He was like, "No, I can't let you go to school like that." So he didn't even have any clippers. He went and borrowed some clippers from somebody, trimmed the guy head up. I'll never forget. Aaron Masters, that was his name. Uh, he later on became a track star, but he had a haircut. When I looked at it, I said, "Can you cut mine too?" It was great. It was like a celebrity barber or somebody had cut his hair. I'm giving y'all a lot of stuff, but George, man, he couldn't cook. No, he couldn't boil water. I'm gonna tell you that now. So if you ever look for something to eat, don't bother by asking him. I was doing most of the cooking when he was there. When my mom, he would do like a banana mayonnaise sandwich, but you know, no, it's good. It's good. It's what you do is just cut the banana, take the banana out, cut it in half, and split it down the middle because you don't want to cut it in slices. Put mayonnaise on the bread and just put it up there on layers and just stack it up. And just take a bite out of it and smile like you like it. But honestly, man, that that has really made me who I am. All the things that I have like talked and spoke with y'all about today, George really he put it in me. He always said you have to be like a lion. You always got to be out there on the hunt. So he said he would just say different things like he would say different things like the Lord didn't put you here just to be standing still. He put you here to make change. He always said that. That was one of his biggest things. He will always say, one roof, one fam. And I used to just think he was just talking about the house, one roof, one family, but he's talking about everybody. He said, my name will ring bells all around this world. And I don't think he meant it like this, but he spoke that into existence. And now his name is ringing all around the world. Um, I can tell you so much. George, I don't know if y'all kept up with Ahmaud. Y'all know who Ahmaud Arbery? All right. I always like to say Ahmaud Arbery, he was the charcoal, and Breonna Taylor was the lighter fluid, and George Floyd was the flame that set this world on fire. And right now, we're still opening up doors and we're still engaging in different conversations with different people from different backgrounds, people who never been to the ghetto and the poverty. I can bring you there. All you got to do is just ask me a question. I can tell you anything you want to know. I've been in different places. I've been in suburbs. Um, I'm just I'm neutral. I can go anywhere. My personality fits it all. Uh, it's just that every time I get up here and I start talking about my brother, I start thinking about my brother too much. And, no matter how much time they can give a police officer, it doesn't matter about anything. It's the fact that I will never have my brother here again. And it frustrates me a lot. And that's what I was talking about when I was talking about mental health. You have to talk about it. And this is one of the biggest stages for me is talking about it. I was really nervous talking about it in front of a lot of people, but this is like one of those meetings, I guess like an AAA meeting or what they call it, where you get to get it out and you get to talk. And I'm telling you, y'all make me feel so comfortable, especially just walking through here. It's amazing. You know, I came here to talk about George, but I can't stop talking about the facility. This is This is something that you don't see every day.
You're with family. Yeah, we cry all the time at Peckham. We cry all the time at Peckham. I want to jump into some of the questions. You really kicked us off well because you hit quite a few that we wanted to start with, and thank you for that beautiful story of your family and
Yeah.
just getting to know how you were as brothers and who George was as a person. Because sometimes I think when we see these things on the media, it's very easy for us to connect and then disconnect when we start to get uncomfortable. But this is a part of your family's everyday living and story. And so just thank you for being there. And we all give you our condolences for the loss of George.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I'm here to try to keep his legacy intact. Uh, George, it been days, it been nights. I cried. Um, she tell me things when I wake up out of my sleep. I don't remember that stuff because I was asleep. So, but the fact that I'm gonna say it again, mental health is real. Um, that's something you have to talk about 24/7. You can't just run around and think it's not. You have to engage.
Let's talk a little bit about mental health. I think that's in your heart right now. I just want to read a couple of statistics and maybe ask you some questions around this. So there's studies that show that overall mental health conditions occur in Black and African American people in America at about the same or less frequency than in white Americans. However, the historical Black and African American experience in America has and continues to be characterized by trauma and violence more often than their white counterparts and impacts emotional and mental health of both young people and adults. And when we think about the Black community and mental health has a stigma in general. Here at Peckham, we serve many people who live with mental health challenges, and we take great priority in investing and providing them resources to just empower their journeys and help them be more successful in work, even living with those challenges. But can you talk a little bit about George's mental health challenges and maybe what you didn't know and what you would tell people, especially Black people, about being okay with talking about your mental health, and even sometimes what these kind of experiences that we witnessed of your brother, the impacts of that?
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a loaded question, so I'll repeat any of it. But
When you talking about mental health with George, you know, he we fished together, and we talked about sports a lot when we were fishing. Um, but the fact that when my mom passed, that's what really like made George just come to a halt. Um, at the funeral, he didn't want to leave the casket. He wanted to sit there and hold on it, and just as if he wanted to go into the ground with my mother. Um, it hurt him. It hurt my other couple of brothers of that were there because I had another guy that was like my cousin, but we call him brother. My nephew, I mean, we call him brother. But they took it to heart. But George, he just stayed pacing back and forth. Then he would just sit there and just hold his head down and just look at the casket. And he was just telling Mama, I could remember him saying, "Mama, you so pretty. Mama, 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 can you hear me? Mama," he was saying it over and over and over again. And no matter how we tried to pull him away, it's like he didn't want to move because the impact that my mother had on him, you have to understand, George, he grew up without his father. So throughout the household, when I was coming up as a child, I would look and I would see little lines on the wall. And I say, Mom, why are those lines on the wall? She said, because your brother want to be taller. So he will always measure his height every day by scratching a line on the wall. Um, I would ask questions about him. I say, Mom, why do he always get a lot of food and we don't get a lot of food? And she always say, look at him and look at y'all. So we knew we ate good, but the fact that all of that stuff that we went through, the hugging, the kissing, the holding, the always speaking and praying with each other about the Bible and stuff like that, it brings you closer. So when you lose someone that you value so much, it really drives you into a corner. And that's where George was. He was into a corner and he didn't know how to come out of it. He would just, he would always talk about mom. And, it's like a broken record every time you call him. We'll talk about the different sports. We'll talk about the Bible. Um, I have like, I was a truck driver and same thing, he was doing it up there. Have like 10 people on the phone and they will all be talking to him. Some of them didn't even know him. But when he was murdered, some of the guys that haven't even been to Texas that was on that phone came to Texas because they said he was helping them with situations that they were going through on the phone. And they was telling me things like they look forward to the conversations because we would call every morning. We would be on the phone, like 10 of us, and it kept growing and growing. I'm giving you 10 people that I knew. So it was other individuals, but the fact that a lot of those guys said that they were going through mental health problems after he was murdered because they were saying like, I never met him before, but just talking to him over the phone and knowing you, I know who your brother is, things like that. But my brother, he was just, man, my mom, man, she really opened up a lot of doors for him. She used to talk to him and tell him, you can do this. Believe it or not, even though y'all look and see how big my brother is, my brother was not the best athlete coming up because nobody gave him a chance. When we were new to the neighborhood, he didn't get a chance to do hardly anything because they already had their picks. So I remember her telling me about a story about him with it was a place called, no, it was a little league football team called the Riverside Cowboys. He went there and he wanted to try out. And she told him, hey, if you don't make it, don't worry about it. She said, just come back and you can try it all over again. She started talking about how Michael Jordan did this and she started talking about other people. And he was like, no, mama, I'm going to make it. I'm not going to cry anymore because he would cry. When nobody picked him, he would run back in the house and cry. So the fact that he became like over so many obstacles because when he came back, and he was like, Mama, Mama, Mama. She's like, I know, you didn't make it and stuff like that. He said, no, I did make it. And they said, I'm starting at this position. And they said, I was the best player out there. And she was just telling me how excited he was. But believe it or not, all those people who played on that team, all the people that he played college ball with, some of the guys who that went pro, all of those guys broke down crying. And they all still call till this day and they cry because they say George helped them through so much. They wanted to give up on life. And they went through so much through mental health and things like that. People look and see the fame and think because these guys got all this money and stuff. I wish I could just say their names, but I don't want to give them out. But these guys are professional athletes and they're worth 20, 30, 40 million dollars and they're they feel like they're rock bottom and they got anything in the world that anybody want, they have it. But the fact that they don't have nobody to talk to about it, he was one of those people that they can talk to. And the fact that George didn't have nobody to talk to about it, he spoke to us about everything, but I guess he didn't want us to know that he was hurt. He was feeling void in a void, that he wanted to talk to us about it, but he couldn't talk to us about it because what they say in the black community is you're considered to be crazy if you have mental health issues. You don't want to get out and let everybody know, but I'm here to tell you, I don't care. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna be about it. So I wish that was one of the things that George could have spoke about to anybody because the fact that my mom passing hurt him and it hurt him tremendously. It not only just hurt him, it crippled him. At the same time, it did the same thing for us. And his daughter is now here without a father, but it's not because George committed suicide, it's because he was murdered by 4 police officers.
Can you describe what it was like to be a part of these worldwide, not just national protests, but literally global protests after your brother's death and hearing the I can't breathe chants and Black Lives Matter and just the power behind that? What was that experience like for you all as a family?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Something that I never thought that people would step out. So many individuals would step out because I never, I've been to a parade before, but it was when we went to Minnesota. It was crazy out there. Not in a bad way, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. So
Well, and
many
in the middle
people.
of a pandemic, that was
They were out there.
Yeah.
Everybody was out there. It was
Yeah.
a huge stage. We went to what they call the square where he was murdered at. And when we got there, it didn't matter what color you were. It was diverse out there. It was so many people out there, and they all were like proud. They were proud to be there, and they were proud to speak. Speak to me and tell me that they were behind me. And I was just like, I'm still trying to gather my thoughts and things like that. But the fact that so many individuals were yelling, I can't breathe. You had people who I never ever thought would want to even speak with me. I'm talking about from celebrities to just regular people on down. They all came out and they said, we're here for you. They said, because he should still be here. He shouldn't have been murdered like that. And I watched those people when we came. They spreaded everything out for everybody can get through. They made sure nobody can harm anybody. They offered us food. They offered us shirts. They offered us anything that they had out there. They was like, here, because they slept out there like they were in the military. They weren't going anywhere. That's where a lot of people were. They would actually had tents and houses, and they were sleeping with each other. And even people who people didn't acknowledge, like it was homeless people out there walking around with George Floyd shirts on and things like that. And I was like, I remember talking to one guy, and he told me that he said, I'm a walking billboard. And he said, I love it. And I was like, look, a walking billboard. He's like, I never thought somebody would say something like that. But when we left, it was a lot of people. And one by one, everybody kneeled and put their hands in the air as we walked through, like dominoes falling. And I never thought that people would do things like that because I'm new to everything. This is something for me. I'm new to this. You know, being after that going to all these other events, I kind of caught on to what was going on and how they get through everything and demonstrate everything. But the fact that this was there. I'm not talking about in or at Oregon, Portland, Oregon, places like that. Man, people were just tired. And it's like when I showed up, all the stuff where they say people was vandalizing and tearing up this and tearing up that, I didn't see anything like that. It was just a complete halt. And a guy pulled me into a place and he told me, he said, that's too much power for one man to have. That's what he told me. And I said, I don't have any power. I said, these people are mad. And I said, I understand why they're doing the things they are doing. I said, and I'm going to try to tell them not to do it, but I can't stop individuals from doing things that they want to do, so.
Yeah. How are you responding to those who believe that George deserved to be killed? People who say to the message that Black Lives Matter, they counter it with, well, all lives matter. How do you respond to people who don't agree with what you guys are advocating for? What has that been like?
Like me personally, when I look and I hear individuals say things like that, I always just say to myself, I say they don't know no better. So they say the things that they want to say. But the fact that everybody's seen that video, 9 minutes and 29 seconds, he was murdered in broad daylight, a modern day lynching. Can't take it back, can't get his life back. The fact that he was on a video, and when we went to the court, they put him on trial instead of putting Chauvin on trial. He was the individual they should have been talking about, but they put my brother on trial. Still to this day, like you just said, people do that, and they always say this and they always say that. I have an Instagram page. They never put their own page up there. They always make a phony page, and they would say negative things, positive things only come from people who show their picture, people who want to be involved and stuff like that. What I was gonna say about that? What happened? Oh, I received a phone call, and I never pick up my phone for numbers that I don't know. And I finally picked this phone number up because it kept calling, kept calling. It had been calling me for months. And as soon as I picked it up, it seemed like somebody fell out of a chair trying to get to the phone. And as soon as they got to the phone, they called me the N word and hung up. That's something that it just goes around. Um, that's something I can't control. And another thing, when people tell me that all lives matter, I always tell them, you're right. All lives do matter, but how can all lives matter if Black lives don't matter? I always say that. That's the only way all lives can matter, if Black lives matter. And to me, we can sit here and hold conversations about it on phones. We can do it anywhere, on Zoom, anywhere around the world. But the key to all of this is you have to show it. You can talk about this stuff 24/7, but if you don't show it, it'll never be okay. I don't know, man. It's just difficult. Look at my wife.
Keita, you're welcome to chime in on anything please do.
No,
Please welcome Keita Floyd. This is Philonise's wife, George's sister-in-law.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us today. I would definitely like to chime in that question in particular, because when they say that all lives matter, we totally agree with that. Back the blue, which is back in the police officers. We're not anti-police. At the end of the day, we need structure in our communities, in our homes. And sometimes we call on the police and first responders to help us, through those challenging times. However, what we are seeing is, if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers in any community, any country that you're having conversations with, like the UN, we do see that the ratio is kind of high in our Black and brown communities. And so for that reason, that's why we're taking a stand, and that's why we go across the country having these conversations. You cannot stop having the conversations and educating one another, and that's what this is all about for us.
Yeah, because without control, it's chaos.
Yeah.
And I tell people that all the time. It's a difference between abiding by the law and serving the law. You know, it's a big difference. The fact that you're supposed to serve and protect, not by any means necessary. That's what Malcolm X would say, by any means necessary. But he was talking about protecting himself. On the other end, when you serve and protect, you can't live by the other code, shoot first and ask questions later, because that's what's going on. That's why so many people are in the dirt, so many funerals I had to attend. And, you know, it get to a point where you like, enough is enough. When are you gonna like figure it out? Because the process that we're going through, people been talking about this a long time. Shifting the culture has been, I don't know if y'all know, y'all know who Botham John is, right? Botham John? All right, Botham John was murdered in his house while eating ice cream. And this other fellow, he was murdered, hands up, don't shoot. She was all in Congress. She done talked to every congressman. She done talked to the president. She's spoken to everybody. The fact that she was asking the no-knock warrant law to be passed years ago, the no chokehold, all of that stuff. But none of that has happened. And when George Floyd was murdered, that's when they invited me to speak at Congress. That's when they said they're making up something, which it was a total package called the George Floyd Policing Act. But still to this day, it hasn't been passed.
We just want accountability at the end of the day. You know, if we go out and we commit a crime, 9 times out of 10, we're going to be taken into custody immediately. And then who knows what the consequence will be. We'll be sitting back waiting for sentencing day, because you know you're guilty without them even, I'm sorry, I'm just that passionate, but without them even really doing a thorough investigation. You know, sometimes you just feel that when you go walk into that room. And so at the end of the day, we just want the officer to go home as well as our family members. We love our family members. And regardless of what you're looking at them on the outside as, they're ours, and we love them, and we want them to come home just like we want the officers to return. We have a lot of family members that are in law enforcement. So we're not against the police. We just want to find a healthy way, a healthy solution to making sure everybody goes home. That's it. Accountability. That's all it is.
And we're still trying to figure out, how can people be so upset when somebody getting fired rather than somebody being murdered?
Yeah.
And nobody's been able to answer that question.
You have to understand, the police officers, when they commit these murders, they are still allowed their pension plans. They are still allowed to go home to their families after their time has been served. They get the slap on the hand. We just received word that David Chauvin pled guilty on the federal level, and he is automatically, the plea deal that they accepted was for 20 to 25 years. We would have been facing life. So when you look at the statistics and you see that nothing is pretty much fair, that's where the conversations come in. So it's not that we're angry Black people, or we're, you know, so much of Black Lives Matter. That's not what it's about. All lives matter, but what we're doing is taking a stand for those lives that's been directly affected. And if you look at those numbers, it's always the Black and brown, high ratio of the Black and brown community.
Yeah. I always say you have good police officers and you have bad ones. You shouldn't have to sort them out. The fact that you have to, like, especially in a Black community, you have to go outside and look and evaluate things before you do it. But when you're raising kids, you have to tell them things like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. When you get pulled over, make sure all the windows are down. And they say, why? Why I got to make all of them go down? Because you don't want any police officers or even suspect there's somebody in the back seat, and then they say, hey, I'm shooting because I'm worried and I'm in fear of my life.
Say probable cause.
Yeah.
Probable cause. So they have these great labels for it. You know, they name it, and, you know, we're going by policy and procedures. Well, it's time to look at those things and revamp them. It's time. You know, we're losing our lives by the numbers. And so for that reason, it's time to take a look at it and have these difficult discussions and make some changes.
You see how fast she read that for y'all?
Oh my. Whoa.
You know?
This has been amazing, and the time is going fast. I have a couple of questions just from my end, and then we're going to open it up to the audience, spend the rest of the time to do that. What can we do? How can we be empowered to make changes in our government, in our local communities? What can we do? I was reading earlier that even after George Floyd's death, which we thought that things would get better, cases actually soared for police killing unarmed Black people. Even during the pandemic, when most people were still in the house, our numbers continue to rise. And so tell us, tell us why justice for George means freedom for everybody.
Me, I tell you. No, I always say justice for George means justice for all, because if you can't get any accountability for the way he was treated, the way the world seen that video, I don't care what language you spoke, what ethnicity you are, you knew by the way that guy had his knee on that man's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Everybody was looking and they said, hey, if he doesn't get any kind of jail time for this, anybody that was in that act, because like I'm gonna tell you just like this, we can take it back to January 6th, when you seen that stuff that happened over there at the White House and the Capitol. That to me was crazy, because when I spoke at Congress, they had people all on top of buildings with AK-47s, all type of guns. All these are military people. You know, the fact that you telling me that they took over the Capitol that day, it's not right. It's not right at all, because I seen people with Black Lives Matter, they were sitting on the Capitol and they were just holding up signs, and they were then there beaten to death out there by police officers and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to tell you is, every time I think about things like that, I compare them, because numbers don't lie. So when you engaging in conversation and you talking about different things like that, just take a peek at it. Because if it would have been Black people, they would have shot all of them in the head, one by one.
They have snipers.
They have snipers for that. The fact that you can get into the Capitol where the president, all of these people who are supposed to be high profile people, you know, people who supposed to be able to speak with different countries, representing us and stuff like that is happening, that's a no-no. That's why I'm big into that. You have to sort them out. You know, you got good ones and you got bad ones. You have to sort them out. And it's, to me, my thing is, for anybody that's out here and they're experiencing all that, if you witness anything like that, don't be biased by anything. Speak out about it. Let people know what's going on. People need to know. Don't let this tragedy, what happened to my brother, hit your front door. Because I've been talking to Congress for a long time, and I still haven't got the George Floyd Police Act passed yet. So I'm talking to you all as people who are American citizens, people who pay their taxes, people who come to work every day. Your life is valuable. And to ensure that your life is valuable, get out and vote. Get out and vote for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons. Because the life that you have, you only get one. And you got to make good choices with it. Because if you don't, what's the purpose of even being here?
So to piggyback off of what Philonise just said, I think the great place to start would be voting. Become more familiar with your politicians, the senators, and different things like that, the policies and procedures. Know in your area if you're registered. If you're registered, then go and find out if someone else is registered, you know, and begin to help them. I know one of the things we did was we took laptops into the underserved communities, and so we helped them to register for COVID. We make sure they were knowledgeable about what they were registering for, who was the people running. We held panels and had those difficult discussions to make sure that people were just aware, bring awareness and education to your communities. For our youth, we need our youth to become more involved. go home and tell your children, please become more involved. They have to really host events. They have all these kickbacks. You know, I have a 26-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they have these kickbacks that they want to be, you know, have and in the community. But sometimes it's good to get to know your neighbor, know what your neighbor is doing, you know, and see how collectively you can come together and find healthy solutions to everything that we're facing in America. And I think voting would be a great place to start.
Yeah, same thing. Just like she just said, when it comes to voting, it doesn't start like in Congress and all that. It starts at city council meetings, in schools, the PTA meetings. You need to be able to enforce things because if you don't know what's going on with your child, how can you talk about anything else in this world? Because they are the future. So you need to teach them the right way so they can guide their family in the near future. Because you got to talk about PTA, you got to talk about city council meetings, you got to talk about voting for mayors, you got to talk about this, senators and so on. Because these are the people who make the decisions at the end of the day. No matter what we say, they make the decisions at the end of the day. They all make a vote. We get a chance to vote people in, but they all stand together and they make votes.
One last question from me before we go to the audience. You spoke earlier that George kind of prophesied that his name would be ringing throughout the country and the world. And I'm sure he didn't see it going out that way. But what do you all want people to remember or think about when they hear the name George Floyd, when they see a mural about him, when they see a T-shirt about him? What do you want people to think of?
For me, it's his compassion and his heart, the love that he had for others. They grew up in Third Ward. They grew up in Third Ward, and I don't know if you guys know, but that's hood. That's the hood. You know, it's a lot of gunshots going on. A lot of violence going on in that neighborhood. And George was one of those that literally took a stand and would make videos and walk the streets and say, hey guys, put those guns down. Let's do some things differently. You know, if you into sports, let's focus on that. And so when George would say that he wanted to change the world, or you would hear, you know, his names would ring bells and things like that, he was talking about sports because he was an athlete. We never imagined it being he passing away in the manner in which he did and it impacting the world. One thing I can say is he brought the world together. He brought all cultures together. And that's amazing. Like he really did ring volumes. And he did, I mean, everybody really talks about him all over the world. One thing that the Philonise probably never mentioned or maybe didn't mention in depth is for the past 2 years and counting, Philonise does not have a sleep pattern. When you guys are resting here, we are normally up with the United Nations having these same conversations and they are having the same issues there. Mm-hmm. So this is not something that's just impacting our communities, guys. This is across the world. So that's why the world took a stand with us. And we continue to encourage you guys to just, you know, do the same. Don't give up because your children's matter. And don't let it hit your front door before you have a voice. You have a voice right now. Speak up now.
You have a voice. I always remember they can't just make laws for the elite and the chosen. They got to make them for the American citizens, people who work every day. George, man, I can tell you so much. Like, you know, in the neighborhood we grew up in, it was a rough neighborhood. And it was a guy, he was a pastor. He used to come to the basketball court every Sunday. And he would try to get people to come out. But he'd probably get one person, maybe two people, you know. But, you know, the Lord say you need like 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Before he come to church. But the fact that George went and sat down, and when he went and sat down, everybody from any one of those project buildings or anything, they came out and they sat there and they started paying tithes. They started doing a lot of different things because they felt whatever George was feeling, the energy that he had, that's the energy that they have. Because when he's around, I don't care if you couldn't dunk. You could have been 5'1". You knew you could dunk then when he was out there because he was so strong. He would just lift you up and put you on the go. So it was kids. They loved him. Like I told you earlier, he cut kids' hair around the neighborhood. He was always a protector.
He did that in Minnesota as well. George would take children to the different games.
Mhm.
You know, he worked for the Star Post, so he would go and have conversations with the homeless. I don't know if you heard his girlfriend at the time. I can't even remember her name. I'm sorry, but her Courtney's testimony. But she spoke about that, how she met him. You know, they were in a rehab program. They were sitting back they worked there and they were trying to help different ones. And she had a husband there, and so they were trying to help. You know, and so that was just his heart. That was just naturally what he was. And so we loved him for the compassion that he had for others.
Yeah, and some of the pastors that were out there speaking about it when I met him, they told me that they had people who would get really, really, really rowdy, and they said when they seen George, they were quiet, yeah, and be peace. And he said they would listen, and they said George didn't have to say much, and he said people would automatically become a team member after that because they was like, if you can do it, I can do it, you know. So it's
Very
it,
inspirational.
yeah. That's just him, you know. Anybody that know him, they always happy. Every time you see him, they say Big G. That's for George, Big George, Georgie Porgy. He had so many nicknames, you know. They called him 6'9", all type of stuff because he was tall. And like I told you, my mom called him the freak of nature and stuff like that. So he was just, yeah. You can talk to him anytime.
We will remember him for his compassion and his service. Thank you for sharing about your brother. We're going to take a few questions from Sarah, who's pulling them in from the audience.
Well, the audience has a lot to say, and most of the messages are thanking you for being vulnerable today, for sharing beautiful stories about your brother and your family, and for having hard conversations that need to be had. One theme that I want to let you know about, which isn't necessarily a question, but just a theme, is that a number of people have talked about the fact that George cried out for his mother during those 9 minutes. And people were saying that how heart-wrenching that was. And ahead of Mother's Day, wishing your family a happy Mother's Day and thinking of your mother. So there's one theme around his love for his mother, which you did address earlier. And then there's discussion happening around advocacy and encouraging people to vote, and some questions around how people can get involved in other organizations for social change. And I know we have on the slide here information about the Philonise and Keita Floyd Institute for Social Change, but I think this might be a good opportunity in answer to many of these questions about how to get involved, to tell people how to find you, and if you want to promote any other organizations that are doing good work around police reform or social change in general, you could speak to that.
No, you're looking at it right now. The Philonise and Keita Floyd Institute for Social Change. We're turning our pain into purpose. The acronyms is pacfist.org, but we work around with mental health, police reform, prison reform. It's so many things that we talk about and we speak about. I remember my wife said we were doing sex trafficking. It's human trafficking because it's all the same. Sex trafficking, human trafficking. They're doing something. So, they laugh. No, I'm talking about the fact that we go out and we speak about different things, and everything is about social justice at the same time. But this institute is something that I really want, because I really want to make change. I really want to be able to show other individuals that they have a chance in life. Like where I come from poverty, and there's so many people where I come from, they never even leave outside of Texas. You know, some of them never even go to Louisiana. That's down the street. So the fact that you have so many people, they can do right, they want to do things, they don't get the opportunities to. So this is one of the biggest reasons this institution is up, because we want to show people. We want to be able to show people teach people so they can have careers in the future. If you having problems with mental health, we want to be able to break that down and help, just like you all do. That's why I keep talking about this facility. This is a hell of a facility. I don't know who did it, who put it together, where the vision came from. This is something that really is getting close to my heart because I worked in a warehouse before. I didn't have any of this. We couldn't go into a room and pray about anything, about peace, about love. We couldn't do anything. Instruments. I was like, wow, they have instruments to play. You know, they'll let you work out, but a lot of facilities don't even have that. So this is something that's huge for me. My wife can tell you more about it, and I just chime in about different things. She is.
Thank you. One of the ways to become more involved, if you want to share some stories or, get involved with PACFIS, is to go to our website, www.pacfis.org, PAKFISC, or you can email me directly, ketafloyd@gmail.com, or you can mail we receive so many letters from inmates at P.O. Box 432, Missouri City, Texas, 77489.
She's smiling.
Siobhan, I wonder if we want to see if anyone in the audience here wants to ask a question.
Right here, in the right-hand side. Or your left.
Thanks for the plug to the warehouse.
Absolutely.
Changing behavior is very hard, right? Especially when it's deep rooted in biasness and a broken system and good old boys justice system. So with that being said, what are some of those incremental steps that you see from, actually, let me ask it this way. Is there anything that you've learned sitting across the table from those that you can use to help influence some of that change that is needed?
Basically, when I'm speaking with police officers, because I work with a lot of them in the Houston area, they always tell me that they're here for me. They don't have problems. They said that they stand for the right thing. So I can't do anything but just listen to what they tell me, because actions speak louder than words. So the same thing with not just police officers, even with politicians. Everybody have their own motives. I just tell them what I see and what I want to see. And the fact that I can't make the change, overnight, but they can, because they are in the positions to do it. So that's one of the things that I work with and I speak about a lot. My wife, she goes to different places with me, and she's there.
I think for Philonise, he has a lot of nightmares at night since this has happened, and so I think one of the best ways. I think one of the best methods for him coping and dealing with that is having these types of conversations, because he's not continuing to hold those things in. And so that's why he can be so vulnerable. And, he can stand up before you guys. Y'all, this is my first time speaking in front of, an audience. I normally sit down and I don't take a stand. So thank you for having me do that. But again,
let me tell you, look, she used to give all of these meetings and stuff at work, so she's used to this.
But the thing of it is, I don't know how to hold my mouth, and so I kind of, stay seated. But I think with Philonise, having these conversations, being able to just open up and be himself, that has really helped him, deal with the death of his brother. I don't think he's ever grieved the situation, because like they mentioned before, we went from having 3 services for George to being whisked off like the day of, before they even put George's body away. They were whispering in our ear saying, hey, you got to catch a jet. You got to be in Congress, tomorrow. And so from that day forward, Yeah. So from
Yeah.
that day forward, we have been traveling the world advocating, and we don't sleep. Like I said, we receive calls from United Nations, and that's at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't have a sleep pattern. But I feel like we're very spiritual people, and I feel like God appointed this job to us. And so we're going to see it through to completion.
You know, like I tell people all the time, we're stronger in numbers.
That's right.
And that's the only way to get things accomplished. We have to work together. One man cannot do it all. I can get out and speak 24/7. I tell people that all the time. Reverend Al Sharpton can speak for you. Ben Crump can speak for you. I can speak for you. It's not going to matter till they hear your voice. And your voice is powerful. You don't even know it because you were made to be somebody special. You just have to bring it out of you. And it took for George to be murdered for me to get out and speak with other individuals all across the world. I would just hold conversations with my friends, my mama, my cousins, or when I was teaching little kids because I coached little league football, I would always speak to their parents or I would speak to them. And the love, the passion that I received for them really made me feel good. But the fact that George had friends out there, I was coaching his friends' kids. So when they see me, they would just light up and they will always be excited because they felt they were gonna get favoritism. But I wasn't like that. I wanted everybody to work hard. Work because if you don't work hard in life, where would you be able to go?
That's right.
That's it, because it's all about the work ethic. And, and yeah, and that's pretty much that's why I'm looking at every individual here, and y'all have a good like a workplace where y'all can be open, y'all can walk, y'all can talk, y'all get the job done. You know, it seems like a great place to be. Like it's a big family, and y'all are one, and you're stronger in numbers.
Everybody don't like the work we do. We like, someone mentioned earlier that, we do get the ugly text messages on, our Instagram, and people do call the house. They've even showed up to our home, requesting different things and just telling us that we're going to die, kill a whole family. Well, I guess, it's some things that's worth fighting for, and this is one of them for me. So
Yeah.
continue to stay prayed up, and we continue to go out even more so and do the work. It's not going to stop.
Yeah. Uh-oh, she cut my mic off. She done? Hey, you know what? Before, I'm gonna just say this last thing. I always said this. If they can make federal laws to protect the bird, which is the bald eagle, then they can make federal laws to protect people of color. Bottom line.
I'm going to try to say thank you. I want to thank you guys both
I thought you get in front of the mic. Thank you so much.
for being here and being present, but also for letting us see the joy in your brother, which made it a little harder for me to replay in my head what was on TV. And so thank you for helping George be present with us today, and for you being present with us today.
Thank you so much.
And
this is Miss Joe. I know y'all know Miss Joe. What I told Miss Joe earlier, I said, you remind me of my home ec teacher. And she always told me my food was horrible. But I think she was just being funny because she was eating it. But my mom taught me how to cook. But I spoke with everybody. I was just laughing and talking and stuff. But this is something I like to reach out and speak to people. And I'm telling you, y'all in a great environment. Unless it's just for me a show for the day, this is a great place. You know what I mean?
And I would like to send a special thanks out to the team that contacted us via Zoom. Can't even remember your name. Justin. It was I can never remember names, Miss Siobhan, and a few others that I don't even recognize. Sarah, there she is in the back. Okay, so we really are grateful for you guys having us. And it's like Philonise has said, you guys welcomed us, and Miss Jo and her team has been absolutely phenomenal. So thank you.
thank you. I know that folks will have more questions for you. So stick around and those.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. Sorry. So again, thank you for being here. And if you guys have more questions, please stick around and thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.